On a much more sombre note, this lunchtime, sources in France and the newspaper L'Equipe are reporting that Cardiff City are taking legal action, claiming 110 million euros in compensation from FC Nantes in damages after the death of the footballer Emiliano Sala. As soon as you hear Emiliano's name, you'll recall that he died when the light aircraft he was travelling in from France crashed into the English Channel in January 2019. A deal had been done to take Emiliano from Nantes in France to Cardiff City. It happened just 2 days after Cardiff had announced his signing. Now, Nantes claim for the first 6 million euros, just over £5 million of the £15 million transfer fee was upheld by CAS last August. So where are we regards this situation, Simon? It's all very unedifying, isn't it? Why are Cardiff and Nantes still fighting in the courts over money? And are we right to assume that Cardiff are indeed taking legal action, claiming 110 million euros in compensation from the French club in damages after the death of the player? A short time ago, I spoke to the Cardiff City chairman, Mehmet Darman, and I said, is it true? Is this what you're doing?
I can confirm that. I think the legal papers were served yesterday, and this is really following up from the federal court's decision that the case is not really fit for CAS to judge on. As you know, when we went to CAS for our appeal, there were two parts to our appeal, which was whether he was our player or not, and secondly, who's responsible. They ruled on the first, but they did not comment on the second. The federal court says that CAS is not qualified to rule on that, and therefore that leaves only one alternative, and that alternative is the civil court.
Mehmet, how have you arrived at that figure, 110 million euros?
I really think that's very much a legal question, and I really don't want to answer that question. It's our lawyers came up with the number. There is logic to it. It's not a number that we picked there, but I really would prefer not to comment any more on that.
Mehmet, from an observer's viewpoint, it's over 4 years now from Salah's death. Why, seemingly, are Cardiff and Nantes still fighting in the courts over money?
Why not? Can you explain to me why we shouldn't be? We bought a young man at the prime of his career in good faith, somebody without our knowledge, put him in an unfit airplane and flew him in dangerous time of the day, or night in this case. And unfortunately, 2 people died of it. Why is it that it's Cardiff that has to then write a check out for as much as that? Cardiff is not a wealthy club. We can't afford this. So I don't see why people say that we're just after money. We just want to get some justice in this. It's one of those things that I think you have to run its course. But
Mehmet, the Cardiff owner, a man I know, Vincent Tan, independently hugely wealthy, could he not bring closure to this by paying out what needs to be paid out?
That's a question you should ask him. I can't speak for Vincent, but he's the driving force, as you know, in all key decisions. So it's a question that you might want to ask him directly, since you know him, Jim.
And that was that. So, that Mehmet Darman, who's the chairman of Cardiff City, who liaises very closely, presumably on a daily basis, with the owner Vincent Tan. Mm-hmm. But what we do know is, yes, and Mehmet confirmed that, Simon, Cardiff are taking legal action, claiming 110 million euros in compensation from Nantes in damages after the death of Emiliano Sala. Emiliano, who boarded the plane in good faith.
Yes.
Who took part in the move, of course, and agreed to the move from Nantes in France to join Cardiff City in good faith. And those around him did the deal. So none of this was his doing. He's a total innocent in what is a hugely heartbreakingly
for his family and for
poignant story. Yeah. And in the middle of all this, is what I'm driving at, are his family listening, presumably still in Argentina, listening to this tug of war that's going on in a fairly unedifying way between Nantes and Cardiff.
Yeah, absolutely. In a society where we simultaneously count deaths, as we have done over the last 2 years with random abandon, it doesn't surprise me that the way death is just discounted from the equation. Look, it's pretty evident what this 110 million euros is. It's the cost of relegation, I suspect. I can't know why we have to riddle myself into this sort of scenario from Mehmet Dolman, who will know precisely what it is. If you're making a claim for 110 million euros, I don't quite know why you wouldn't be telling people what it's about, because you're the ones making it. Court of Arbitration of Sport is probably not the right place for it, as it's proven to be the case, because this is contractual law. This is about a contract. This just happens to be a football player. It could have been, with due respect to the fact that someone's died, but it could be a tea chest. You're either under contract to own that tea chest, or you're not. In this instance, Cardiff signed a contract for a player. So, within due reason, why didn't the player get insured at contract stage? Why was the player, an incredibly valuable asset for a football club that can't afford a lot, apparently, put on a plane in a manner like that? Why? Why would Nantes do it? Why would Cardiff do it? Why wouldn't he be put on a private jet that was commensurate with the cost implications of signing a £20 million footballer? They put him on something. No due care. So going after 110 million quid is a mechanism to deter, I suspect, Nantes going after the rest of the money. Because if they've only been paid one part of the stage payments, then Nantes are going to use that as a brick building exercise to get the rest of the payments. It's a very difficult one, because what you're asking for is morality in a sport sometimes that's bereft of it.
Precisely right. That's exactly what
you're asking for.
We're
morality.
not wrong to ask for that.
But the fact of the matter is, Nantes aren't exhibiting any morality. What we would like to see is everyone drop hands.
Yes.
Because both of those football clubs, and with due respect, and I'll be very sensitive, there's no parallel universe. I'm getting my backside on a jet unless I know where that jet's come from, what it is, and why I'm getting on it. And I certainly wouldn't be getting on a turboprop, with due respect. So there's an element of the player going to make a dream move that could have taken responsibility for his own travel arrangements. But there is also an element of, why aren't the two clubs facilitating a proper mode of travel? Why wasn't the player insured? The moment we sign a player of significant worth, you insure him. He's insured. So if a tragedy like this happens, you don't have unsightly... Well, not that you could ever imagine a tragedy like this happening ever again, one would hope.
Yeah.
But you would have a situation where this unedifying argument was dealt with by insurance companies. And maybe he was. And maybe insurance companies are in the middle of all this, suggesting that we want to see mitigation before we start making any payments out under premiums.
What would you have done as an owner, Simon?
It's a difficult one.
Yeah, but I know you leave no stone unturned.
I would want Nantes to drop hands. I would say this is a really difficult situation for us both. You've sold us a player, which we've signed for. This player has not been receipted by us because neither one of us took care over which method of transport he was put on. So we're going to have to find a solution between ourselves which involves compromise. You can't have the 20 million quid.
Yeah.
And tragically, I can't have the player. So what is the best outcome? Is it to meet in the middle and say, I've got to wipe my mouth of this, and I'm not going to pay 19 million quid like the contract says, I'm going to pay half of that, and even that I struggle to want to pay. But then you're asking for someone to be sat in a situation. Now, the argument for Tan is, can he afford to do it? Of course he can afford to do it. He doesn't think he has to do it. This is coming from Tan. It's not coming from Mehmet Dolman, because Mehmet Dolman works for him.
But the non-owner is a very, very wealthy Polish millionaire businessman in his own right, Waldemar Kita. So why isn't it owner to owner, Kita to Vincent, Vincent to Kita, and they sort it out?
It would appear, without us knowing the exact facts of it, that there's an entrenched position on either one. We didn't do that. You bought a player. Why wouldn't you put him on a plane and make sure that the plane he was put on was the best in class? Well, you sold a player and you were delivering him to me and you're getting my money. So why didn't you put him on a plane? So why have I got to pay for the tragedy that you in part helped create? Why was there an agent allegedly in the middle of all this? Why were situations manifesting? So why didn't the player, to some extent, say, I want to fly on the best plane in class? Now, that may be because he's a young man, he doesn't know any better. But the two millionaire football club owners do.
It's unedifying. What's the logical outcome?
Well, the logical outcome is they're going to keep fighting. That's not the logical outcome. That's
we need a moral outcome to it as well. Well,
forget it. Are you looking at the protagonists involved in this in particular equation? With due respect, and we're not talking about the most empathetic of people, are we? In one particular incarnation. The bottom line is that they don't think they should have to pay Nantes. Nantes aren't standing down. So now what they're going to do is come over the top and go, right, well, you cost me 110 million euros. Because it's not, I mean, I don't know what Mehmet's playing at. I mean, Neil Warnock talks very favourably of him, and I've always, had, in the brief occasions that I've had any interaction with him, he was always seemed like a very fair man. We all know what 110 million quid is. It's what cost you when you got relegated. What's the big riddle about? You believe now, this ridiculous assertion, there's no genuity in this. This is not genuine. If you want to take your gun and point it at anybody metaphorically, you've got to say to Cardiff, hold on you a minute, you're going to go after 110 million quid? What's that about? What's that about? That smacks to me of bad form. Arguing about, but I'll tell you what it's about. It's about concentrating Nantes' mind about you want to fight now about this 19 million quid and you don't want to accept that we've all got to step off perhaps. Then we'll come over the top at you and make it life more difficult for you in another way. Whereas both of them, if Cardiff have paid some money towards a situation, Nantes should accept this is an really difficult situation and that they can't have their 19 million quid. And I suspect that's at the centre of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's an insurance company in the middle of all this as well.
And a tragedy is at the centre of the whole thing, of course, with the loss of life, not just Emiliano, and there were 2 losses of life in this particular sad story. It's 12:30.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.